Hello and welcome to India Hangout. I'm Govindraj Ethiraj. More writers are returning awards from the Sahitya Academy, a government body set up to promote literature and the arts. The government has been belligerent and combative in its response. The truth is, and I'm quoting now, is that all these writers hate Modi ji. Why did they not return awards during incidents earlier? Asked Ravi Shankar Prasad, a minister in Prime Minister Modi's government. Now, even if these writers are being reactionary in their actions, should the government act similarly, or would a more conditioned, mature response help? And more importantly, what is the end game in this, if any? Well, joining me to find that out are Piyush Jha, novelist and filmmaker, Sanjay Jha, spokesperson of the Congress party, and Dr. Aijaz Ilmi, member at the BJP. Thank you all for joining us. Piyush, let me begin with you. You said that you've been following this very closely.
Sure.
There are a lot of merits, demerits, the nature of the reaction of the writers and novelists, the nature of the reaction of the government. But what's the sense that you're getting? Where is this heading?
Well, I hope it's heading to some kind of a resolution. Always we see that it's always the writers who react to things, trends which they see. Everywhere in the world, history has shown us that the writers are the first ones to get affected by things which are going on.
Okay.
So they've got affected. You have 40 now, I don't know, I lost count, but I think there are
more
and more who are coming out and taking some step. And one hopes that there will be a message which is sent.
So, from your point of view, as a writer yourself and as a creative person, what was the kind of resolution that you would expect at this point of time, considering that the matter itself has escalated since then?
Well, you know what, there's never been such an atmosphere where people are feeling that there is a freedom which is being curbed, and you can't really pinpoint it. You can say that this incident was the flashpoint which kind of has acted upon it, but it's a cumulative effect of a lot of things which have been going on for the past couple, almost a year and a half now. And so that I think this is a big message which is being sent by those who respond to trends, who take abstract thoughts and put it down into words. So they have kind of said, they've come out and they have taken a step, and I'm sure that some good thing will come out of it.
Okay, great. Sanjay Jha, obviously there is a comparison to previous governments, and the first response of the present government is that this has been happening all the time or many times, and why haven't writers returned awards before? So why indeed, from your perspective, haven't the writers returned the awards before?
Well, I can tell you one thing, that at the moment, the kind of environment that you have, which has been created, and it's not just about the brutal assassination or the murder of people like Mr. Kulbargi or Govind Pansare or Narendra Dabulkar. I think if you look at it, there is a clearly an attempt to stifle dissent. You had the Sri Ram Sene, I remember, saying that they will cut off the tongues of anybody who criticizes Hinduism, and there is nothing happens to the Sri Ram Sene. To dismiss these things as a law and order issue is completely wrong, because these are ideologically hostile, people, and they are willing to carry the threat of extinguishing a human life to the ultimate extreme. Now, when you have an 88-year-old Nayanthara Sehgal or a 90-year-old maybe Krishna Sopti, and you have people like Salman Rushdie, Amitabh Ghosh. I mean, there is a genuine apprehension. Why the writers are returning? There are 40 writers. Govind, there are 40 writers to the last count that I remember from different parts of India, returning the Sahitya Academy and other awards. What does it tell you? I mean, this has got, I think is very, very inappropriate, if not completely disingenuous, to link it to politics. For Ravi Shankar Prasad to say that these are people who are pro-Congress, anti-BJP or anti-Modi, for Mr. Arun Jaitley to say this is a manufactured revolt, and for one Mr. Uncultured minister saying that writers should stop writing, it tells you what happens in a society where the regime is getting increasingly fascist. You target poets, you target, liberal thinkers, you target intellectuals, you target authors, because these are people who have a very, free-spirited thinking. They are not chained by any ideology. They are not, kind of committed to any conformist thinking, and therefore their freedom to expression of theirs becomes a threat to those who are in government and who believe they are being written against. So, end of the day, I think there's a larger issue here
Yeah.
of a creation of an environment which is highly negative and does not encourage freedom of expression, and is born out of a more deep agenda of making it a very monolithic, monochromatic religious ideology.
Right. Okay. So just a quick sort of question, Sanjay, from the other side. There is on ground, if you look at the data, nothing fundamentally has changed. I mean, the atmosphere that you talk about, yeah, I mean, yes, it could be argued there is an atmosphere of distrust or hate, but equally someone could argue that you have the freedom to say what you want. The same writers could be channeling their energy into doing something which is perhaps anti-establishment. If you know what I mean, we're perhaps dealing with the abstract on one end and reality on the other.
Govind, I will not agree with you. I mean, you got to look at a certain set of violent incidents happening one after the other. You have the horrific killing of Muhammad Akhlaq in Dadri. You have Ghulam Ali's concert being prevented from happening here because of one of the alliance partners of the BJP, because both BJP and Shiv Sena are fighting for the same hardcore, hardliner Hindutva vote bank. You have the threats given to Sunil Kulkarni, his face being blackened, and Mr. Kasturi's kind of book launch being becoming a huge political battlefield. There is a definite level of rising religious intolerance, and you can't ignore that. So
Right.
you see, end of day, even if you go back by some of the statements made, by various leaders of the BJP, senior leaders, they have made very inflammatory statements, and these are not people who are right-wing fringe. Let's not use the word fringe anymore. Aijaz is here. You can ask him. I mean, some of the principal people, the architects of those, extremely violent outbursts, are people like Sakshi Maharaj, who's a member of parliament, Yogi Adityanath, who spoke on behalf of the government in Lok Sabha on communal harmony. You have somebody like Sadhvi Jyoti, who is full of extreme venom in her outpourings. You are talking about people who are practicing very, very divisive and
Right.
extremely provocative language.
Right. Okay. Aijaz, let me come to you. So, the statement that one of the statements that Arun Jaitley, Finance Minister, made was the activism has been prompted by the decline of Congress and left, and thus forced to manufacture a controversy themselves. And that leads to, he says, is this protest real or a manufactured one? Is this not a case of ideological intolerance? And there are a large number of writers which left or Nehruvian leaning. So is the government sort of using this, Aijaz, as a nice political football? You found something and immediately sort of blame the past, blame the left, blame the Congress, when actually in reality maybe neither had anything to do with the awards?
I'm so glad that you put this question to me, because let me answer Sanjay Jha also at the same time. What he talks about the larger context, and even the BJP feels that there is a larger context, that you've had a systematic election, a democratic secular election in 2014, and people have emphatically given their mandate to a government. Okay, now what is easily understandable is that various issues were raised, that the church attacks, the BJP had something to do with it. On investigation, it was found out that it wasn't so. The Kolkata nun rape, however horrible and hideous it may be, was blamed at the BJP's doorstep. Again, at the same time, there also we felt that we were being blamed unnecessarily. On investigation, it was found to be 2 Bangladeshi illegal immigrants who did it. So we see a pattern. We see a pattern of abusing the BJP and its agenda, and targeting the Prime Minister, where it should not. The clarity and the democratic and the legalities are very, very clear. Like we are very interested that the murderers of Mr. Kalburgi be arrested.
Right.
And
Aijaz, my question is,
Karnataka, why haven't you arrested Mr. Kalburgi's murderers to date?
Right.
Secondly, Mr. Arun Jaitley is very, very clear. He put a question mark. That is this a new kind of ideological intolerance? to a mandate that has been given to a government to govern. Our mandate obviously is not to promote people or to justify killing of any rationalist or Mr. Akhlaq, and every senior leader has also condemned it, including people like me and various other spokesmen. Our senior leaders have said, however horrible, horrifying it may be, it has to be condemned, and you can't condone such acts.
My question is,
against the interest of the nation,
if I
gives
can
us a bad name. So we've been saying all the right things also. Yes, there have been infuriating statements made by people in our party, people in other parties, which can't be, which are condemnable, to say the least. But at the same time, one has to understand that there have been 800 Sahitya Academy awardees who are presently around today. And if 30 or 40 of them have resigned, they're entitled to their voice. But the most important thing to understand is that the ink of the scholar is always more better and holier and stronger than the blood of the martyr.
Right. So, Aijaz, can I interrupt very quickly? My question is, you know, the statement that has been made, and really we started by asking, is the government overreacting, right? So the statement was, this activism is prompted by the decline of the Congress and the left. So, I mean, this is almost suggesting that every Sahitya Academy awardee who has not resigned is sort of non-sympathetic to the Congress and the left, and those who have resigned are sympathetic to the Congress and left. So you're adding a political color to something which never had any.
The blame has to be with the state governments who are in charge of law and order. If you put everything at the doorstep of Prime Minister Modi, then we feel there is a pattern that is emerging very, very clearly.
So because he happens to be the Prime Minister of the country, so people look at it, people sort of smirk when he says something like, oh, but that happened because of something in the state, wrong with the state government, etc. You know, a Prime Minister cannot take that kind of a stand. He has to take a stand for the entire country, you know. And essentially what is happening is, what just happened is the Congress and the BJP, they are indulging in what is known as, there's an English term for it called whataboutery. You know, it was used in Northern Ireland. So every time somebody would say, there's something wrong out here. But what about that? But what about that? But what about when you were there in power? So in that, the whole issue has been sidelined. It's something which is being practiced very well by the politicians right now to kind of sideline all issues. And thankfully, the writers are coming out and saying, we will not let you sideline these issues, and we are going to bring these issues to in front of everybody. And this is how we're going to do it. How else will they do it? They'll write, or they will have whatever weapon they have in them. In this case,
so but that's one argument, that why don't they kind of refuel themselves?
Yes, and I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they will. And there are people who are writing every day. Writers of different kind, journalists, media people are writing about it. About what's happening.
Okay.
So this is just another way.
I like. Thank you for bringing that term up once again. Whataboutery. Sanjay Jha, is this plain whataboutery, which of course now you're on the other end, but you may well return to if you're in power?
Govind, let me tell you something. I mean, what we all need to recognize. I mean, there may have been one or two aberrations, but the fact of the matter is that India is and will remain a secular democratic republic. It's a country that is far committed to secularism, to liberal values, to progressiveness in thinking, to tolerance. And I don't think any government in the world can now reverse that. My basic premise will be that, I remember being in Germany earlier. And, when I went to visit the Dachau concentration camp, one of the things that you learned was that ordinary Germans who lived in houses outside the concentration camp did not know what was going on, because what happened within the concentration camp to intellectuals and authors, the tortures that was being done, was not known, because you didn't have social media. You didn't have the kind of reporting that happens today. So I believe in today's times, to throttle dissent, to try and, harass individuals, or even persecute people, like, you can see what's happening to people like Teesta Settleworth and Sanjeev Bhatt, etc. I think there has been a very organized and very concerted attempt to take on anybody who is challenging the government. Now, you cannot succeed with it. And I agree with the previous panelist who said it, and I don't want to bring politics into it. This is a larger issue beyond politics, of freedom of expression. And it includes everything that you say or write, including media freedom for that matter. And I believe that at this point of time, if the writers like Nayanthara Sehgal and not just she, but many others like Uday Prakash, etc., and Sashi Deshpande have given their awards back. Trust me, this goes beyond politics and so-called accusation of being leftist or pro-Congress. I mean, that's all complete outrageous rubbish. I completely dismiss that. These are authors, all of them have different backgrounds, they have their own creative license. If 40 or 45 of them are returning their awards, I think India needs to worry. Ijaz has made a very spirited defense of whatever he had to say in defense of the government. But let me tell you, this is not just being talked about in India. The entire world is questioning our democratic credentials.
Right. Okay. Aijaz, let me come to you. The issue is not so much about the awards being returned. Why is the government, the government, I mean, these are senior political leaders, they're all holding cabinet level positions. Why are they reacting so belligerently? Why should they, I mean, someone's got to say, I am the big brother or sister, as the case may be, and behave so. Why is the government almost descending to the same language as, that you might perhaps see in a street fight?
It's very, very clear that Mr. Arun Jaitley's article was also laced with various question marks. He raised very important issues. And the idea is, as I said earlier, that we are an open democracy where the right to dissent is integral to all of us. And there's political dissent and there's linguistic dissent. But also the writers also have a responsibility of providing the linguistic glue to channelize their energies for whatever, if they are for the government or against, or otherwise, they have that right. But we feel that sometimes a lot of linguistic subterfuge is also being used to demean and to devalue the democratic mandate that this government has got by putting things at a doorstep, which I don't think are correct. Like what happened in Dadri, despicable, horrifying crime of mob lynching. A lot of us have said that there's no place there for something like this in a secular democracy. There have been multiplicity of voices, but if you only play the negative voices, then the positive voices are bound to get drowned out. You have to have a system. My friend Sanjay Jha wants to quote all the negative voices and infuriating voices, but there have been some sensible voices. Mr. Arun Jaitley, Rajnath Singh, a lot of senior people, our spokesperson, have said that it's totally condemnable and there's no space for something like this in India. So you also have to play on the positives. If you seek the negatives, then you're indulging in linguistic subterfuge designed to in a sense to deny the fact that a mandate has been given. You're right. You're well within your right, and you should oppose anything wrong the government does, because if we don't perform, we'll perish. And the writers must use their ink and their pen to point out the various mistakes if the government is making or where we are going wrong. But to serially resign and create a mentality of siege mentality that the entire country is in danger from a rising tide of intolerance, which is going to drown all of us, I think that is a bit too much.
No, Aijaz, my question still stands. Why is the government reacting almost in the same level as perhaps those who are accusing it of intolerance? I mean, if I look at the three statements that we've got including Ravi Shankar, Prasad and Arun Jaitley, this is combative. You can be combative with political opponents, perhaps. You could be combative with enemies of the state. But why be combative with authors and writers and poets? That's my question.
And they are the wrong people to combat it.
Govind, it's very clear. Mr. Arun Jaitley's statement said, without any prejudice to academic credentials of any writers. These are the questions that he asked. So there's no question of questioning the intellectual integrity and academic integrity of any writer who's resigning. But we are questioning the motives. That is this also the same pattern of putting everything at the doorstep of the BJP where it shouldn't be? There have been allegations in the past which have been proved wrong. So we want the writers to also see there's a counter narrative that we are talking about, that we also feel aggrieved that when we are blamed of the church attacks, which we haven't done. We're blamed of our workers are blamed of killing the Kolkata nun and the horrifying rape, where we are not involved, as investigations proved later. So we are also getting aggrieved by the same thing, which is why a sense of combatism is coming into our diction. But at the same time, the writers, with their clarity, they are entitled to write the way they want to write. We will always have an open democracy.
Just hold your thought there. Hold your thought. Let me come back to you. We're sort of running out of time, Piyush. where should we, how do we take this forward? I mean, so, both sides have sort of fired. The writers are fired by, resigning, and more are resigning, 40 plus. The government has clearly showed that it doesn't care, at least if one were to go with the words, and instead it says, okay, you guys are all leftists and Congress, if assuming that were the same somehow. So what's next?
So that's exactly what these people are doing, right? They are trying to sensitize the government to understanding that they cannot behave so blatantly in such a blasé manner. They have to be sensitive to people. They have to be sensitive to what's going on. Now, the gentleman from the BJP says it's always blaming the BJP. But how can you not blame the BJP? They are in the power. They are the government. The writers are not blaming a party. They are blaming the government. The government has to behave and engage with people much more than they are engaging. You see, the thing about the Congress government, now I'm not supporting them. The thing about the Congress government, they took stock of what was happening. And when people raised their voices, the ministers resigned, things happened. They did understand that there's people power. Here, the government seems to be, okay, you voted for us, now you can go do what you want, fly a kite. So when writers repose, they said no, it's a conspiracy. 40 writers sitting together in a dark room, or starting a WhatsApp group, let's return our awards. Is that possible? It's not possible at all. These people have been affected, and the government should understand and be sensitive to what's happening in this country.
Right. Okay, Sanjay, let me come to you. Last question. If we were to, finally, we want to ensure that the entire, universe of writers, authors, poets, and literateurs, I mean, they do not become insignificant. Becoming as they are almost political pawns in this game. So, what do we do next, and what should we aim or hope for next?
Govind, I will start by first telling Aijaz that, he kept saying that we got the mandate, but as your previous panelists rightly mentioned, you have a democratic mandate, don't abuse it. I mean, you have got the mandate to govern the country in the right ways, but, to throttle freedom is frightening. As we all know, Adolf Hitler was democratically elected. He became the most dangerous dictator the world ever saw.
Sanjay, that's an odious comparison.
Anyway, I'm just making a statement of warning there, Aijaz. But to answer your question, Govind, on a larger plane, I think it's very important at this point of time that whether it's, I think civil society needs to once again raise its voice. I think social media is a great platform. The media itself, including yours, a digital platform, is a great platform. I think political parties across, I think all non-BJP parties or non-BJP alliance parties are all protesting. I think we are, publicly going to try and ensure that nobody is ever intimidated or has any apprehension of freedom, whether from the area of entertainment or information or news or education. And I think, end of day, Govind, I believe that, the people of India will, and this is the beauty of our democracy, will get their opportunity if there are any excesses and a single individual in this country gets hounded. I think we all need to stand up and fight. I know, for example, that yesterday a senior minister from the BJP said that the Tista settlement and Congress are part of one because they read into the Supreme Court statement. They are free to do that. But end of day, let me tell you, Settleberg is a citizen of India, as is Priya Pillai. So I think we have to all rise beyond petty parochial politics and realize that constitution and democracy is above it all. As a member of the Congress party, as one of its spokespersons, I can tell you, and I'm speaking here as a liberal Indian, that, I will, and my party will stand for any individual group or society in this country that feels threatened. And we need to, all of us, look at an India that can tolerate and become the country that it's meant to be, which is a country that encourages all voices, irrespective of their caste, religion, or their point of view.
Right. Thanks for that, Sanjay. Aijaz, let me come back to the question we started with. The question was, is the government overreacting? Secondly, I mean, to me, it does seem like an overreaction, but nevertheless, is there a middle point or a meeting point now so that this issue is brought back under control, or is it, so as to prevent further escalation and more resignations?
There has been escalation on both sides. I totally agree with you. To an extent that the reaction in the last 1 week, we've come out with our own reaction. But we also feel aggrieved that all these writers and my friend Sanjay Jha and various people of all hues and public-spirited individuals and various eminent personalities, is there a game plan to protect Mr. Akhilesh Yadav and the Samajwadi Party government, that they had nothing to do, and the law and order that is expected of them was something that was a responsibility of the
question is on...
So is this a payback time of the support that the Samajwadi Party government
the question is on awards.
These things bother us. Let the blame be at the doorstep of the one who is responsible. Do not generalize it to such an extent that everything that happens in different states, which are not under our control in terms of law and order, the crime, the horrific crimes will be blamed on us. That is something that needs to be addressed at the same time. And we hope there is a middle point, that blame where it's due should be given and not juxtaposed and juxtaposed on us where we are not responsible.
Okay, so thank you so much, Aijaz.
The people from Karnataka have got no connection with Akhilesh Yadav at all. There are writers from all over the country who are reacting, and I'm telling you, no one has got a connection with Akhilesh
Piyush,
Yadav.
Then say that Akhlaq's murder, however horrifying and horrible it was the responsibility of the local UP government, which is headed by Akhilesh Yadav and the Samajwadi Party.
It is the responsibility of the government.
Blame the people responsible. In Kalburgi's murder's case, we are asking also that why is the Congress government silent on this? Why have you not arrested the killers of Mr. Kalburgi? It's a question that's a very valid question.
Aijaz, can I interrupt you? Aijaz, we've drifted from our topic, and last word, Piyush, as the novelist writer in residence today, what's your sense? I mean, how are you're working on your next book, and how are you planning to, are you affected by this at all? And
absolutely, I am. I mean, I wrote a...
And what's your next
I wrote a thought yesterday which got tweeted all over the place. I said, well, the ink might be on the face, but the writing is on the wall. So all smart people have to understand, when the writing is on the wall, what they have to do. And I think all writers are showing you, by returning their awards, they're showing you what the writing on the wall is.
Okay, that's a somber note to end on, not a positive note, but a somber note. But hopefully things will improve from here on, and then they don't.
Well, the government has to be more sensitive. Yeah. I think every government has to become more and more sensitive, like other people said. In this day and age, people of interaction. The people have to be much more sensitive with what's going on.
Right, and let's hope for that. Thank you very much, Piyush, Sanjay, and Aijaz Ilmi. We've run out of time on India Hangout. We'll be back soon. Thanks for watching.